All right. Hello, Susan Marie Almquist here. So excited for our Birds of a Feather, sixth in a series of webinars at MyCore. And today we've got a really special treat. It just makes me smile just looking at these two couples that we have with us today. Just that idea of working as a couple and what it means. And I know we've got these amazing roles at MyCore, and we're kind of leaning into that today as well. So Patty, I'd actually like to go to you first. And I mean, how long have you been at this anyway, in terms of working alongside your husband? Share with us, kick us off on this topic.
Okay, thank you so much, Susan Marie, and thank you just for facilitating this. I think it's such a great topic, and that's a great question, because Ken and I are very unusual in the sense that we started working together before it was even popular, back in the early 1990s. So over 30 years. Some people watching this probably aren't even as old as we've been working together. And how that came about, Susan Marie, is that we, actually both of us, I picked up the book, and then Ken, you read it, was called The Popcorn Report by Faith Popcorn. And if you haven't read it, it's a very interesting book. But what she talked about was cocooning and how the world is changing, and that most of us now, we don't want to get in our car and drive for 2 hours to go to a job. And so that I thought, gosh, Ken, this is perfect. So we started working from home. We sort of built our office from home as well. So that's just kind of a recap over 30 years.
Oh my goodness. And that concept, I think you're right, was ahead of its time. I mean, certainly the pandemic brought us all to a different mindfulness about how that could function. But it's interesting because I look at your title as Chief Strategy Officer here at MyCore. And I know some of the people listening in either live or perhaps in the recording are business owners. And maybe they're wondering about the strategy or, the efficacy of having couples work together at work. So do you think it's a good strategy? Speak to that for a minute.
I think it is a strategy. And I think that very often it's important. I think it's part of your business plan, Susan Marie. I think it is important for a couple to really understand who they are and who each of us are working together, because I don't think it's a good idea just to start a business and not put some thought into what each of the couple does and what their role is and what they're good at.
Well, we'll flesh that out more here today too. That's great, because I do think there's a lot of strategy that can go with that. But let me go over to you, Natalia, if I may. And certainly I would imagine that you and Tony have not been working together for 30 years because there's just a different age consideration right there. But how long have you and Tony been working together? And speak to that for us.
Yes. So I am working with Tony for like a year and a half now. And it's been an amazing road for us. For me specifically, I think he helped me a lot in my position here in MyCore. I mean, I think that you have to work to, Patty was talking about it, who you want to work with the person that you feel the best with, the person that's going to help you the most. And for me, that is Tony. Tony, for me, was amazing. This whole time in MyCore, it's been just an amazing experience.
I just love watching the looks between you guys as couples too. It really says so much. And Tony, I know you would have been at MyCore, not working with Natalia for a period of time, and then working with Natalia for a period of time. So what kind of a difference was that for you? Because clearly it's made a big difference for Natalia in that capacity.
Yeah, it's been great. It kind of started out, I've been at MyCore longer than Natalia, as you were just alluding to. And I was there probably about a year and a half. I'm coming up on my 3-year anniversary this August at MyCore. And she was at another company selling insurance. She was having an okay experience. It was a decent job, but she would come out and see me on my meetings, and we'd be laughing and joking around. And she would just see that I was actually having fun at work. And she'd be like, this is an interesting experience. Like for her, work was always just work. And she's like, I kind of want to get involved in what you're doing.
Yeah.
So she joined my core initially doing sales. And then I was realizing that she'd be a great fit for our experience team because she's so good with working with clients and she's so thoughtful and considerate. And I was like, you should be on our experience team and work full time at my core, not just doing sales here and there, and come on board and be a full-time employee. And since then, it's been great. We've been able to help each other out, work together. And when times are stressful or times are good, we kind of share that together and navigate it. So it's been a great experience.
Actually, my husband and I work together too. And what you just referenced is one of our favorite parts, is that kind of the end of the day, summarizing, reflecting on, kind of vision casting, that you can share some of that. And it sounds like you and Natalia are able to do that in a different kind of way now too.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah, sure. We love to get together at the end of the day and be like, so how was your day? Good. How was yours? And then
Right.
kind of share what we went through throughout the day, what we accomplished, what we got done. And yeah, that's one of our favorite parts as well.
Yes, I feel that it's not only at the end of the day. We have the nice experience that we are both working in the same apartment. So we actually get to talk during that day as well. As soon as Tony finishes one meeting, he would come to me and tell me, oh, this went amazing, this happened, that happened. And we get to share our experiences during the day as well, which is really
Good
good.
point.
Yes.
You know, something I'm hearing from you, Natalia and Tony, both, is this like positive outlook, like you're framing your experiences in this positive way. And I just want to bring that to light, because I'm not sure that would happen with every couple out there. And I'm sure there's things that are challenging and you bring that to each other as well. But that ability to frame it positively, I would imagine it like strengthens both of you then. Like it, because that's a muscle sometimes, that muscle of looking at things in a positive way. And if you can help each other stay strong.
I would
Sure.
say 100%. I hope that from here to 30 years, I can say the same thing as Patty and Ken and say, I worked with my husband for 30 years.
Oh,
Better.
that is
I
so
really-
cool.
Yes.
I bet a lot of people listening in are thinking the same thing. It's charming, really. And in fact, those of you listening in, if you have any questions as we go and you're hearing something different than I am, please feel free to put it in the chat. I'll try to catch that as we go along too, because Ken, I'd like to go out to you for a moment, because I think that actually the topic of birds of a feather came from you, if I'm not mistaken. And I just loved that caption, that idea of kind of like attracts like to some extent, although sometimes opposites attract too. But being the chief relationship officer at my core, I know you've got a unique perspective on all kinds of relationships. And I'd like to hear from you what inspired you around this topic.
Well, the one thing I love is being paid for making friends. And so that's where the relationship end of things comes in, right? Because the paycheck or the compensation is nice, but if it's on something that you don't really enjoy or you don't have a connection to, then it's really work as opposed to an experience. And so, you know, the way that Patty and I came together is that we were kindred spirits, in the sense that right at the same time, we were both looking for a way out of the conventional working world. And so we met in a company that was around that idea. And as Patty alluded to, you know, the popcorn report, when I asked people, I asked so many people, have you ever heard that book? And they go like, I don't think so. And it's like, well, it's not about movie theaters or Orville Redenbacher. It's really about, you know, something to do with cocooning, finding a way to work outside of the home. But that was really something that we had to do creatively over 30 years ago, because it wasn't a conventional thing. So you have to be a little bit of a person that is willing to kind of break the mold, to do something a little different. But, you know, having been able to work from home for, you know, over 3 decades now has been such a blessing, because if you need a couple of hours off or you need to do something, you just go to the mirror, talk to yourself, give yourself the "that's okay with me," and away you go, right? So we've just got such a blessing to be in a time and place where we're working with people that are like-minded. And as in the case of Tony and Natalia, you know, they've got similar dreams and aspirations as what we did. And it just gets better and better every year. And of course, when you come across a company like the one that we're with, that's so flexible, so willing to adapt to change and to create change, that, you know, they say a change is as good as a rest. And so a lot of times you can master something and do it over and over and over again. It gets kind of tedious. It's like that movie Groundhog Day, you know, where a lot of people like, hey, I'm a professional, look at the letters after my name, I've been doing this for 30 years. But really, you know, wouldn't it be refreshing to do something a little different? And then of course you have to have a unique relationship, because if some people can't even get along when they both have totally different careers, and when they come home at the end of the day and say, how was your day? And it's like, fine, how was yours? Fine. And like, what does that really mean? Fine, you know? And so there's no shortage of things to talk about, people to discuss, experiences to share. And as Natalia mentioned, you know, that's on an ongoing basis throughout the day. So yeah, I wouldn't trade it for the world. And of course, to bring legitimate value to people, I think is the most important thing. Because if we're really honest, we're marketing, we're selling, we're sharing something to somebody. But boy, if you're not bringing something to somebody that you personally believe in and you feel has tremendous value, it's a real stretch to, you know, because sales is a transference of belief. And when you believe in something and you think it's going to bring tremendous value to somebody, you'd tell them anyways, even if you weren't going to be compensated. Although we've been blessed handsomely over the years for doing it, we haven't sent any of the money back, but we kept a good feeling as well. So it's a double-edged sword there. We're happy with both outcomes.
That's terrific. Oh my gosh, Ken, something you just said made me think about my own parents when, I mean, my dad was a lawyer and my mom was a homemaker. And I would watch them sit down at the end of their day. And I just thought, gosh, it must just be so different to, like, how can my mother even imagine the goings on in my dad's legal work day to day? And how do you bridge that? But then sometimes there could be a blurring of boundaries. And I just wonder, you know, Ken or Patty, if you want to speak to how do you keep some of that space so you can still have relationship, right? Or that's separate from, you know, work, co-work.
That's actually a great question, because one of the things we do in our home, and it helps, is we have separate offices, and my office is upstairs and Ken's is 2 levels down. And so I will treat Ken the way I would any colleague like you, Susan Marie, or any of the other people that I work with virtually. I'll send him a message in Slack, or I'll give him a phone call. So we don't have to always see each other face to face. And I think it kind of keeps the boundaries, it keeps the distance. And then if we meet for lunch, we meet in the middle, and then we would have lunch together, and we might recap what's gone on with a meeting or with someone we're working on, or a prospective business client or something like that. So it's just part of the boundaries that you learn to adapt to as you're working together, and what works for you. And that's what works for us.
Yeah, let me just add, you know, I think most people, if they've been involved in any kind of a team sport, you really love being part of a team and you want to contribute, but not everybody's the pitcher or the catcher or the right fielder or whatever, you know, sport you want to use as an analogy. So as much as you may have things in common, it's great to have some strength and, I wouldn't say weaknesses, but specializations. And so that way it really feels good when you can be the combination of 2 personalities that, you know, come out with a win-win-win. Because the most important thing to me in any kind of a business environment is a win-win-win. I win, the company wins, and most importantly, the client wins. And so that's where, you know, what we talk about as being the world's most people-centric company, and the most important people are our clients. That's an old saying that you never want to get confused with, is that the customer, the client, the person that is purchasing from you is always right. Even if they're wrong, they've got to be right. Because if you win the battle, you lose the war when you're trying to prove that that client is maybe wrong for whatever reason. So, you know, we've got that flexibility here. And that's why, you know, this company being as nimble and as conscious of the fact of, like, one of my responsibilities is to help figure out, who do we keep out here? Let's be real selective so that the people that interface with MyCore are dealing with the best of the best, the carefully chosen individuals. And when you do that, you can feel really confident that the chances of having the pride of belonging to that particular team is something that you'll never let go of. And so that's something that it just permeate. People can feel it when you're proud of your involvement.
Hmm. Oh my gosh, I feel privileged actually to be the chief people officer at MyCore and to be able to host things like this right here with you amazing 4 individuals here that I get to work with. And then I think, well, wait, am I doing this webinar for us? Maybe because I get a lot of value, but I know it really is like you're saying, Ken, it's the clients too, that we think of our clients at MyCore, and I think a lot of businesses aspire to this too, is like the clients are also part of our kind of ecosystem, so to speak, right? And so we are also talking not just to one another, but to involve our clients and people that are watching in on this conversation. So it's kind of goes both ways. And Natalia and Tony, Ken and Patty have shared like how they find boundaries by maybe having their offices in different spaces, and that's one of the ways that they overcome kind of what might be challenges during the day. But I'm wondering how the two of you, man, you said that you're in the same apartment. How does that ever work? I know sometimes I can hear my husband who is on a different floor, but sometimes I'll have to turn on low music so that I don't try to listen to that and I can concentrate on my own thing. But what about for you guys? How do you find boundaries, or is that a problem for you?
Yeah, I was actually going to chime in after Patty because we do the same thing. We work in different rooms so that we aren't talking over each other and we're not distracting each other and therefore getting on each other's nerves. So we kind of create that boundary there. Like I'll work in one room, she'll work in another. A little tip too is if we both are in meetings, we turn the fan on for the air conditioner so that it stays on. When it gets off, it's super quiet. And then we can be like hearing each other in each other's meetings. So that's one little tip we do for working together. But yeah, that's one way we kind of set some boundaries just by working in different rooms. It helps. And then one thing we also like to do, like say we've both had a lot of meetings, we haven't really seen each other all day. We're both doing some kind of administrative work, or just some data entry things. We'll come out, sit in the same room, maybe at the kitchen table, and then we'll do some of that work, catch up, ask how our meetings went. But big thing is definitely meetings in separate rooms so that you're not talking over each other.
100%, yes. I would say that another boundary that we do that to not get in each other's nerves would be to, so it's a nice boundary that we have. We do not talk about business and as soon as we get into our room. So it's
At the end of the day.
At the end of the day. We read that on a book, actually from one of our partners.
Yeah.
Who is it?
Jerry Frensos,
Jerry
Live
Frensos.
Intentionally Well.
Oh,
Yes.
yes.
The bedroom being your sanctuary. So like after 9-10 p.m. we don't talk about things that are stressful. We'll talk about work if it's positive, like the positives from the day, but we don't talk about what stressed us
Anything
out that
stressful.
day. So that is a good point. We keep our bedroom like after 9-10 p.m. our sanctuary and don't have any stressful discussions that raise cortisol.
Right.
That's a great tip right there. I haven't read that book yet and I've been wanting to, so thank you for kind of bringing that forward. And I also just heard you say something about like you'll come together at the different table during the day if you're not in a meeting, and it almost sounded like it's refreshing. Like it could be just to change the room and what you're doing to kind of be refreshing. And I'd like to maybe hit on that topic for just a minute with all of you, because I know, Tony, for example, you have your jujitsu, I think it is, that you do sometimes in the middle of the day. So how do you, like, what if Natalia has something she wants to do, or, how do you balance and figure out the things that refresh you, whether it's the exercise or the coming together? What does that look like?
Yeah, for sure. I think breaks and balance is key. I'm pretty strict with my routine, and I'm really routine oriented. There's a lot of things I do. I try to nudge Natalia to do a little bit better, because I'll, say I have 3 hours worth of meetings and I'm in my desk in one chair for 3 hours straight. I'll come out, sit on the couch for a little bit, give myself like a 5-10 minute break to just sit on the couch. So that way I can go right back to my desk, feel kind of refreshed versus like, oh, I'm stuck here all day. And then I do my work and I feel refreshed again. Or like if I'm doing some data entry or administrative stuff, I might do it from the couch if I've been at my desk for hours. I like to get my workout in the middle of the day sometimes because, when you're on Zoom meetings or you have a big meeting in the afternoon, after you wrestle around with some 250-pound men and they're trying to choke you and break your arm, those meetings that you have at 3 o'clock on a Zoom from your bedroom just don't seem as stressful as they did before going to jujitsu. So I do like to, whatever that exercise may be, I think midday, like or early morning, whatever it is, midday breaks for a workout are a great move. And just finding those little times where you can readjust and re-energize.
Yeah, Tony is more, he has a routine. So it's very good actually. He has a routine. I know what his routine is. And I am more a go with the flow girl. I just, whatever comes, the day comes. And I am very organized and I'm very into my work. When I start working, I don't like to leave things in the middle unfinished. So once I start working, and that's it. I can sit down there for hours until I finish. So Tony, as he said, he's trying to push me a little bit more to take those breaks, which are very important because, you need to, as you said, Susan Marie, you need to refresh, you need to maybe move from one place to another one is very important as well.
Yeah, even just the switching of rooms.
Yes.
Sometimes, even if it's not a break, I will just move from my desk to the kitchen table just because I don't like sitting in the same spot all day long. So just the moving of the rooms, I think, is a great move too.
This is really interesting. And just watching the two of you kind of navigate, right? Having a routine versus kind of going with the flow, which I could imagine for some people would bring some challenge. I'd love to hear in the chat. You guys, let me know. I'd like to take a poll right now. Are those of you listening, are you a routine or are you a go with the flow kind of person? Routine or go with the flow?
That's a great question. That is such a good question. Because what Tony and Natalia do, I think at one stage we were more like that. And as we got older and kind of more chill, I guess as you get older, things aren't so, I don't know exactly what the word is, but you just tend to flow with it more. Not that I'm necessarily like you, Natalia, because I am a bit more structured, but I don't feel I have to do things the way I did 15 or 20 years ago. And I know for Ken as well, we used to do things that were way more structured than they are right now. And you like to get out 3 or 4 times just to, even if it's just a 15-minute walk, just to kind of, like Natalia and Tony said, to kind of, get it off your shoulders, and then you come back and focus again on what it is that's important. But I think as well, Susan Marie, is that when couples are working together, we're talking about working from home. So Tony and Natalia work from home, we work from home, you and your husband work from home. But there are couples that work together that their situation is a little different. Like they have a brick and mortar business, they're a mom and pop business, but they still need to be cognizant of what each partner does and doesn't do and what they're good at and what they're not good at. But I think that it wouldn't be so important that you stay away from each other or you get that feeling of involvement in your business and still go out and do it if you're actually driving to a business. So I think there's sort of 2 different schools of thought there, but I think having the ability to know who you are regardless is key. It's the number 1 in my mind.
Yeah, let me just add to that one of the things that maybe but not so much by design, but by happenstance, is that what we do with MyCore for business owners is that I think in many cases, maybe more than we might imagine, we probably save marriages, because one of the most stressful things that somebody can do in a business is bookkeeping, payroll, benefits, and HR. So if somebody's trying to get a business together and one or the other or both of them assume that responsibility, there's nothing more stressful than a business that's failing or a business that's so demanding that you take the charm out of it. The reason that you originally started the business is now something that is a sidebar and you're assuming all these other responsibilities. So, and to Tony's point, which I thought was so perfect, because life is a series of contrasts. And when he says, you know, it doesn't seem so bad after a 250-pound guy is trying to slam you on the floor and break your arm, that you go back and you have to do a Zoom meeting, you know. So it's just, you know, if you want to feel good, just smash your head against the wall for a while, and then come back and your sore finger is going to seem like just not a big deal at all, right? So it really is just making a choice of what you compare things to. And of course, we really should be so grateful that we've got the flexibility to do businesses like this as couples together from home on our own terms. And that's something that, you know, most people only dream of. And if we can share with them the idea that we could support them in breaking free that way, I mean, what more rewarding thing is there that, you know, hopefully as good people, we would tell people about it anyways if we weren't getting compensated. But hey, being compensated is even kind of the icing on the cake, so to speak.
Oh, yes, it is. Ken. You mean you're not out taking breaks trying to fight off a 250-pound man? I know, I'm thinking that is a unique contrast. But the
I'm
point
trying to fight off becoming a 250-pound, you know, in a bad way. Oh, that's good.
yeah, that wouldn't be my point of contrast either, but it's a really good point, right? Of having that contrast in our day. And that's that idea of refreshment, what that might look like. And I just was grateful, Patty, that you pointed out the different paradigms in the sense that we're talking about, right? For working together, the birds of a feather, whether it's at home, which happens to be the case here, or not. And that could look really different. I was reflecting on, like, who do I know that's doing a good job in a kind of a brick and mortar tradition? And the person that first came to mind, they're not actually, the husband is the co-owner of the company, but he actually does other work, and she's really the lead, like, commercial realtor. So they're in the office, they have different offices, but he's not there every day. But they really have come to recognize, like, I think I hear you, Ken and Patty, well, all four of you really saying that you appreciate the different ways in which you can contribute to the business. And I think that just really takes communication, like, big time, right? I'm hearing that from all of you. Like, a friend said to me one time, communication's the key to comfort. But sometimes that could break down. So I'd like to hear from each of you, really, a moment where maybe you can reflect on that you struggled with being in relationship and at work, and, like, how did you overcome that? Sometime that you felt like it was difficult, or maybe it was a drawback, either professionally or personally, not, you know, anything that you're willing to share. But so I'd love to hear from you something that you feel like you've been challenged by and had to nevertheless overcome. Natalia?
Yeah, I can tell you sometimes that I feel challenged by, since we are both in the same job, we know our clients, both of us know our clients, who our clients are. I work directly with the clients, and sometimes I come to have, like, this small problems with taxes and things like that. So my challenge there is not to get Tony involved on my clients' problems or situations.
There you go.
Yes. So what I try to do is just remember Tony is working with me, that he has a total different, he's a strategy officer, operating officer, so a chief operating officer, I'm sorry. So he doesn't have to do anything with a client directly. Yes, I do go to him to help me with, you know, it's Spanish, English situation translation and things like that. But now avoid to add all this heaviness on his plate that he shouldn't be having. So that is one challenge that I do have that I think I got better.
Yeah, that's a good point. When we first started working together, we would share a lot of our individual role challenges with each other. And then we had found it created more stress on both sides. So I would share things that were stressing me out, and then it felt like I was unloading that stress to her too, and vice versa. So when she had issues with her clients and she's sharing with me, I now felt I had to solve those problems. And we realized it caused more stress for each of us because we now felt like we had two jobs. I had to help her with hers and she had to help me with mine. So we've realized that not offloading our individual role issues, like we still collaborate and help each
Right.
other, but we don't just like unload a bunch of our individual role stresses on each other so that we, have now two different problems on our plate. So we kind of got
Right.
better with that and
Way better.
have just collaborated in a better sense that flows a little easier. So we've worked on that and it's eliminated a lot of stress.
That's pretty sophisticated, actually. I really appreciate you sharing that because it is, I think, a natural tendency to want to share with the person you're closest to, right, in relationship with when you're having a challenge at work and you think they might uniquely understand it because you work at the same place. So to recognize that boundary is helpful for both sides of the house, right, at the work side and for yourselves personally is really valuable. That was
and it's a really fine line because like I said, we do collaborate and help each other. So if it's a problem that can be solved, then maybe we'll kind of use our discretion to collaborate on it versus just kind of complaining about the rules. So we kind of navigate it well. We just don't want to, like I said, unload each other's stresses off on each other because we both have enough stress with
Right.
at the day to day. So it's a fine
Because-
line.
Right. It's so easy, right? It's so easy to get him into all of these situations that I have with clients because he knows my clients. He knows what he knows what I'm doing for them. It's not like Patty was saying that there's sometimes situations where a lawyer with the wife that is working in home, like even if the lawyer goes and talks about his situations at work, probably she's not going to understand anything, but Tony does. So
all right.
they're very, very fine line there for sure.
All
I
right.
think,
Oh, I was gonna say
go
something.
right ahead. Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say that for us, it's just our personalities that maybe it's not a conflict, but it's just a different way we approach situations because I'm more, okay, if something comes up, I'm going to figure it out, or I'm going to hear what other people are saying before I really form an opinion one way or the other. Whereas Ken, he likes to take his ideas and he's always got ideas. That's why he's the visionary and I'm more of the get her done. And so he'll just talk. And so he might talk to me or he'll call you or he'll call somebody else and he'll just solve the challenges by putting out ideas. And sometimes the ideas don't make sense or they're not workable or they reach a point where somebody maybe even is offended because he says things without really thinking of the consequences because he's just trying to form in his brain. And so I find that frustrating because I am not like that. I don't just blurt things out. I'll just wait and hear, okay, what's somebody else saying? Okay, well, here's what I think we should do. So that is kind of it's a personality thing that I deal with because now after all these years together, I'll call him on it. I'll say, keep your ideas inside your head for a minute longer, and then we can deal with it down the road. But that's just who he is.
Yeah, so, to add to the title of this conversation, it could be birds of a different feather in a sense, right? But there's nothing that hasn't been written in a book that couldn't help you deal with a situation, particularly in business. And one author in particular is Michael Gerber that wrote the E-Myth. And he also re-released the book under E-Myth Revisited, and it's the entrepreneurial myth. And what it talks about is the importance of compartmentalizing different responsibilities in a book. And just to really briefly outline the idea is that if you start a business on your own and you're doing everything, your success becomes your demise because eventually there's just too many plates to spin, too many things to keep going. And if you haven't had any forethought of compartmentalizing anything, then somebody comes along, oh my goodness, so you look like you're really like overwhelmed. Can I help you? And it's like, no, I wouldn't even have time to explain to you how to do it. So like when even as couples or as business partners or as an organization, even though you might be doing it all yourself in the beginning, you want to isolate what is marketing, what is accounts receivable, what is compliance and so forth, so that you can kind of part that out. So when somebody does want to help you, you've got a little bit of a format, a little bit of a grid work of somebody to go ahead and help. So beginning with the end in mind, I think is really kind of the concept here. Or plan, do, review. Your plans are going to change. You can bet on that as time goes on, but you want to have some kind of a framework like a GPS, because I think everybody has GPS now. If it's not in your car, it's on your phone, but you got to know where you are to start with. You have to decide where you're going to go. And then in between, there's going to be construction and accidents and weather incidents and so forth. So you might have to reframe how you're going to get there. But if you don't know the beginning and the end, then the middle's never going to get sorted out. So it's really great when you've got two people, that are working in that same framework with that eventual destination in mind.
So that's what you do between the beginning and the end. You're just kind of throwing all these things out there to see how you can navigate to the end.
Yeah, masterminding, you don't have to keep every idea, but put them all on the table and keep the good ones.
Exactly. And I love how insightful you are, both of you, in like knowing yourselves and knowing the dynamic between the two of you and keeping that like in a positive way, like always progressing, right? It appears to me that you're always reflecting on the ways in which you do things and kind of like your personalities and how to always like improve upon that. It's pretty fun. Yeah, and you made me wonder, I actually don't know the answer to this. I know you both fairly well, whether you have a regular time that you come together to talk about the business or about your lives or about your goals, like any kind of like structure to that, or how
There's
that
no
plays out.
structure for Ken and I. Everything we do is just it's very organic, and it's very, there might be times where we'll be out driving and things will just start coming. We did one time, we took a drive from Vancouver, British Columbia down to San Diego, California. And during that drive, we listened to personal development tapes and then actually had our diary where we did our 6-month, 1-year, 3-year, 5-year goals in all aspects of our life. And so that was kind of the foundation of what we do together. So even now, after all these years, it might be a period of time where we're just talking about our love for each other. Or there might be a time where we're talking about our kids or our grandkids, or then my core, or, the thing, whatever it is that is on our mind at the time. So it just is how we operate together.
I love that. Traveling does get you out of your space, I think, and allows you to kind of be together in a different kind of way. You're just reminding me of the power of that. My husband and I try to do a quarterly, we call it goal setting retreat, but sometimes that's just a unplugging time. We're just at a local coffee shop, but when we can travel, it is just so different. It's so impactful. Well, what about you guys, Natalia and Tony? How do you weave in, I should say, the goal setting and the vision casting for yourselves and your lives? I know you're moving into a new house, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, we're very excited. Very.
Congratulations.
Yes, thank you so much. And Patty, as soon as you talk, you made me remember like so many experiences, and I'm like, oh, I want to jump and start telling you all about everything. But I really feel that our relationship is very similar to Patty and Ken. We're very organical. What I love about Tony and I is that we're always open to explore new things. We recently, it was Tony's idea, of course, that we had a trip to Virginia to visit her sister. And we started listening an audiobook about how
Think
to
and Grow Rich.
Think and Grow Rich. And yes, and all the time we're having all this new, new things that we become with, and I love it. It's really, really important to have different situations in your life where you can explore with your couple. That is very important for me.
Yeah, and just like you guys, we don't really have a set time where we
No.
talk about it. It just kind of
Just
appears organically, although I will say a lot of it is at night when we're in bed, kind of getting ready, unwinding from the day.
Mhm.
Like I said, we don't talk about stressful things at night after a certain time, but we'll start to kind of collaborate on, oh, did you have a nice day? Yeah, I did. Like, what was good about it? And we'll say what we want to accomplish. Like, we're excited for our house. And, even though if times are tough, we'll be like, we know we're going to pull through this. We just got to focus on this and this and this. And we have our game plan. And we make sure to always talk and strategize on how we're going to get through things and move forward. And just kind of staying on the same page and positive and talking things through. But yeah.
Yeah, we had one time, do you remember? We downloaded an app, and the app would tell you to set a clock, an alarm, 10 minutes before going to sleep, and just talk about what you like from each other and how your day was. It was very nice. We stopped doing it.
Yeah, I'll have to get back
We have
on
to
that.
go back to that.
I like that. It sounds like you do a version of that just naturally, but the timer really does lend some intentionality to it.
Just comes.
So a lot of the people put in the chat that they're more routine oriented than the go with the flow. And I just find it interesting that you all are modeling so beautifully, like even if you're more routine or more go with the flow, or you have a certain personality and then the other one that you're managing all of that. Like, I don't know if you have any thoughts around how you do that, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, how you navigate those differences. Go ahead, Patty.
I think that the biggest for me, I can only speak for myself, is just the love I have for Ken. So everything stems from that. So I would never want to do something that is going to totally upset him. Sure, I can be argumentative or I can push back a little bit, but it's always done with love, and I think he knows that. And I'm a communicator. Like, I also, if something is on my mind, I need to talk to Ken about it. Like, if he says or does things that I don't think are to the best of our relationship or our business or something, then we'll talk about it. So I think communication, Susan Marie, is the biggest, and just my love for Ken.
That's beautiful. Oh, that's good. Thank you. Thanks for jumping in there, Patty. And I imagine that's transferring over to Natalia and Tony too. I see a lot of nods and warm smiles.
He appointed me to another position. It's called the Chief Yes Dear Officer.
That's the answer to everything, in case you're wondering. Well, hey, what do you guys like to do for fun or like for a date night? Let's hit on that here before we run out of time. And then I'm going to want to ask you for advice or tips for couples that are looking to have the kind of success that you are. But what about the fun factor in your lives? Do you have date nights, or what do those entail, if you're willing to share?
Sure. Go ahead, Patty.
It's real brief. Now it's family. Everything's about family for us, whether it's visiting my 96-year-old mother or our grandchildren, or something to do with family, meeting for lunch with family. We had lunch with Ken's daughter and her mother, Ken's ex-wife. So that is something that is important, like just keeping again that feeling of family, and which is a lot different when we were younger. It was about partying and going for dinner and staying out late.
Yeah, we do have a favorite country club too, the Northview Golf and Country Club, which is just a beautiful, serene place that, it's not too far from where we are, although we go to a variety of different places, but that's kind of a go-to place. It is just so serene and so, picturesque. And it's just kind of a place that, having the ability to work from home, it could be today, we might just decide, hey, let's go over to Northview, but it's just such a beautiful setting that it really gives you a taste of what it must be like to be able to do that all the time. And, the kind of people that you associate with at a place like that is kind of uplifting as well, because that's the unique thing with the people that we deal with Mycor, whether it's our clients or whether our associates, that everybody is kind of carefully selected. So you're, at least you're under the impression that you're one of the best, even if you're kind of close to being that.
I think I've been to that country club with you, if I'm not mistaken.
Good to say, Susan Marie, I think you have.
We only
Oh,
take
it
people
is
that we love.
stunning.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's family or people that we love that we do. So if you've been there, we love you.
Oh,
Love
feel
that.
it. Thank you. And how
For
about good
all-
team building right there? Yeah, Tony.
Oh, yeah, I was just gonna say, I'd say probably in our relationship, I'm more of the social chairman there. Natalia's perfectly cool with just staying in, watching a movie, so I and which we create good balance because then we go out sometimes here and there. Some nights we'll have a nice movie night. We try to make sure we go out to a nice dinner here and there. When we first met, we were going out partying a little bit more. We were 27. Now I'm 31 and she's 30. So we're kind of switching gears a bit, buying a house, doing more family stuff too. We try to make sure we go to every family event that we get invited to, right? And we try to make sure that it's not all just work or staying in or going out. We really like to find a nice balance of everything, make sure we have some fun out, some fun in, making sure we're working hard. And we really do, like, it sounds almost kind of tacky saying balance because people say that so much now, but it really is important in the sense of how you organize your days and your week and making sure you're not just doing one thing only, because then it gets boring, right?
Right. I would add to that, which is a very fun time, and I know to travel with MyCore. So we are so lucky that we can travel for work, but we can also travel with your partner. So we got to, I don't know, you've been in Colorado already before, but it was my first time to so many cities in the United States that I got to travel with MyCore. So getting to know new places, and we always sneak out to try food around there. And I think that's also very important, and that's the fun part of working together too.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. Natalia, thank you for bringing that up. It's like a work family. In a sense, we really look forward, I think, to all seeing one another and experiencing different parts of the country. And it's funny, I think that my networking group that I'm a part of, I talk about sometimes my BNI also becomes like an extended family. And I was just thinking that my husband and I we're going to a little event here this afternoon, right after this, with somebody from our BNI, and it's kind of like a social event. And then we're going to dinner on Friday night with this other couple from our BNI. So it's interesting how that's also kind of woven into our lives as like another kind of sphere of people to participate with. And it just kind of brings that fun factor. So before we close out, here's what I'd like to do is to invite you to share any tips that you might have, because I imagine there are either owners or, because there could be individuals that are looking, maybe there's individuals that are looking to find their mate that could be the person they could work with the way that you both do. But what tips could you have either for the business culture to allow for that, or for the individual that's looking for this, or for couples that are already embarked upon it, but that you've seen work for you in particular, or guidance, just kind of some closing remarks that way. And maybe I'll go in reverse order of what I did at the beginning, and Ken, start with you.
Well, one thing that occurred to me is that we're in a time right now where there's literally millions of people that are contemplating leaving the conventional workforce and starting something on their own. And there is no group that I have greater respect for than the group of people that volunteer as coaches for children's sports, or in Boys and Girls Clubs of America, or Girl Guides, or Cub Scouts or something like that. So when you've got some experience in doing what we do, and you want to help people bridge the gap, and maybe if it's a couple, maybe one of them will kind of part-time kind of stretch out, and then if they want to be the beneficiary of your experience, maybe their vision is that both of them could eventually break free and work from home, or be solopreneurs or entrepreneurs. That's a great thing that I think many people, if you stopped 100 people in a city that you'd never been in before and say, excuse me, I'm not from here, but could you help me? Probably 90 of the people at least would try and help you, make a recommendation, or where do I find, City Hall or something like that. So it's just, so rewarding to be able to help people and not really have to strain yourself because you've been there, done that, got the t-shirt. And if you can save somebody a lot of time, energy, and effort by getting them back on course, you're just expanding that group of individuals that's becoming so much more universal now. I mean, if you're not an entrepreneur right now, you're going to be a victim of, increased pricing and companies going out of business and all that sort of thing. So if we can save people by what little experience that we've had, then I think that in itself is a great reward.
No kidding. It speaks volumes to me, Ken, your perspective does in that regard. So I thank you for that. Tony, could we go to you next? And then Natalia, what kind of tips might you have in closing here for folks watching?
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of what we talked about today were kind of really crucial tips. So, if you're working from home together, working in separate rooms, and so that you're not talking over each other, collaborating on how your day's been going, helping each other out when it's needed, when you can. Communication, of course, you want to make sure that you're not taking your stresses out on your partner. I think a lot of couples can tend to do that. And that's why a lot of people recommend not working with your partner, because they argue at work and they take their stresses out on each other. So I think when there's conflict or stressors that arise, it's important to take a breath, reflect a little bit, and then say, hey, let's work on this together. How can we solve this issue? Making sure you don't let your emotions just run rampant, and you collaborate together and you strategize, and you just don't take your stresses out on each other, and you really stay cool, calm, and collected. So it's easier said than done, but it takes practice. We argued a little bit more when we first started working together, and we kind of got it down to a science, and we barely ever argue or on different sides of the table when it comes to working together now. So
Yes,
now that you're over the hill at age 30.
I
No,
think
these are some great summary points, Tony. Thank you. Natalia.
I think that it's very important to listen to your partner. That's part, obviously, of communication, but to really listen the person and validate their emotions. That's very important for me. I think that also making changes for your partner is very important. So if I see that Tony gets frustrated with something that I am certainly doing or saying in the specific, let's say, then I would try not to do that. Like Patty was saying, that she makes changes for Ken because of the love that she has for him. So I think that that's very important as well. One thing that I can give you a quick example. I am more sentimental, emotional person, and Tony would I would want him only to tell me, oh, it's okay, everything's gonna be fine. But he was giving me answers as, oh, maybe you should do this and that, because he is more logical and he gives more that kind of answers. And I was like, baby, I just need you to tell me that everything's gonna be fine. And he made that change, and that helped me a lot. That's all I wanted from him, to give me a hug and yes. So yes, just make changes and listen to your partner.
Wow, that was just so valuable, Natalia. Thank you. I can see why you thrive as a people advisor at MindCore. We're so fortunate to have you in that role. It's just beautiful, just great stuff. Patty, we'd love to wrap up with your perspective.
If I were going to sit down with someone who wanted to start their own business, whether it was a work from home project or a brick and mortar, and they wanted to work with their partner, I would start by, let's talk about you. Each of us has to really know who we are before we can know who he or she is as a partner. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how stressful would you find it if the money that you were making as an employee wasn't coming in? How would you handle, and you can do all the things, like there could be a series of self-evaluation. Like, are you the sort of person that can handle things being just thrown at you, or changes, or having to go through the ups and downs that an entrepreneur has to go through? Because some people, that is not who they are.
Yeah.
They need the structure of knowing that they have a steady paycheck. That's what keeps them solid. Whereas if you are an entrepreneur, you have to have that ability to know that there's going to be amazing days, but there's going to be days that maybe you won't achieve the new client, or you won't, something that you've been working on for 60 or 90 days falls through the cracks. How do you handle those topsy-turvy events? And that's how you can evaluate whether you personally can do that. And if you believe you can, then you can self-evaluate. You can work with your partner, and how would he or she be able to handle those things? And could you flow with it if that person needs a steady paycheck and they're not going to get it as an entrepreneur?
Mm.
Hey,
Words
Susan,
of wisdom.
I'd like to add one last piece of advice, because I feel I'd be doing everyone a disservice if I didn't. One thing I think we're really good at is only one person's allowed to be having a really tough, stressful time. So let's say, for example, Natalia's having a horrible day. Like I am the one that steps up, tells her it's all going to be okay. I'm there to console her, and vice versa. So if I'm having a really stressful, tough day, she's there for me to remind me it's all going to be okay, and is consoling me. So we kind of like take turns in that sense, that if someone's having a really bad day, you acknowledge that they're having a worse day than you and they're more stressed than you, and you make sure to rise above and be there for them, and vice versa. So I think that is huge, because if you see that they're super stressed and they're more stressed and you kind of join in, then you might start arguing. So we kind of pick our battles there.
Mm. Wow. These tips are really the kind of thing that I
get that.
think
Could you try again?
that could set people up for success long term. That's our goal, right? Is to set each of you to take the kinds of nuggets from today that can set you up for the kind of success where you could endure 30 years or more of joyful working together. And stay tuned. 'Cause I tell you what, this webinar is my favorite. Every time I do one, I'm like, oh no, this one's been my favorite. This is our 6th. We will have one next month, actually, with my husband Curtis and one of our clients from my course. So that'll be another interesting perspective. Stay tuned for the details on that. Thank you so much.
You guys were awesome. Hey, I've been upstairs in my office tuning in, and Natalia, Tony, Patty, and Ken, you guys, this was a great webinar. Thank you. I had to just come downstairs and give her a smooch.
Thanks so much, honey. Thank you. Thank you all so much. Have a great rest of your day. Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody. Thanks, Ken and Patty. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, guys.